Dr. Dang. We've got a lot to talk about today. I'm really excited. I will tell you this. My days, I go home now. I have a wife I've been married to for right over 5 years. I have two daughters. And the last, I would say, 5 months have shifted from our normal conversations to female hormones, perimenopause, menopause. It's crazy what I've learned. It's crazy what my wife has learned as a female, and how there's just still so much confusion. So I'm excited to dive into that. It's like I'm in the plane, I'm watching something, and it's all about women, and that's like where I'm at right now in my life, which is pretty crazy as a male who is very uneducated and still feels educated and still feels very uneducated still. So I'm excited to dive into it. Before we do that, I just give me a little background on yourself. I know when we originally connected, there was this amazing story I remember of you making your own medicine and herbs and this, like, I loved that story. So I want you to also include that because it was really inspiring for me, and it made me think like I should be doing more and I should have a garden, and like, why am I like, purchasing this from the store, and how do we, do this all internal? And that's a lot of work, but I'd love to hear a little bit about you, your story, a little bit about that background. And then I'd like to dive into some, I guess, unanswered questions from a female's perspective.
Let's do it. First of all, Tyler, I want to commend you for even trying to understand the complexity of women's health, because most women don't even know half of their own health and their own hormones. So I'm so excited to dive into this with you too. And I think it's amazing that you're even wanting to have the conversation, because a lot of men need to start normalizing these conversations in their relationships, in their households, with their mothers or aunts and uncles, aunts, family members, all of that. So we'll dive into that, but I'll start with my background. So first and foremost, I'm a naturopathic doctor. And so that question comes up as what even is a naturopathic doctor? Because a lot of people don't know about it. And so I am medically trained. I went to a 4-year accredited medical school, and I specialize in integrative medicine. So not only do I know about pharmaceuticals, diagnosing, imaging, but I also know quite a bit on nutrition, supplementation, herb-drug interactions, which is so prevalent in today's day and age when everyone's on supplements too. It's important to know what can and can't interact with medications. But most importantly, I get to the root cause of a variety of different concerns. So I do more advanced, analysis when it comes to hormones, gut health, biomarkers, things like that. But I actually didn't think I'd be a doctor growing up. So that wasn't on my path. And it actually came about through a trip to South America. And so this was a special story where I was working on an organic farm in South America, and I was seeing the full life cycle of plants. So starting with planting seeds to harvesting plants to then experiencing a medicine man who would come to the farm to collect these various medicinal plants, and he took them back to his little village and his hut, and he dried all these plants and made medicine out of that. And I saw start to finish of growing it, seed sprouting to plants to harvesting to medicine, that I realized in that moment that in earth, our earth has given us everything that we need to heal. Our ancestors, have gone through centuries using plant medicine. And I realized in that moment that I wanted to be this medicine man. And so I looked up everything possible about natural medicine. I found out about naturopathic medicine, and I'm here today because of it and because of that medicine man.
Wow. And then how did your experience in South America shape kind of how you think about medicine and patient care today? I'm so curious.
I would say, it's interesting that we now have started using pharmaceuticals, in the last century. Prior to that, we really only used food as medicine. And so when I was staying on this farm too, everything that we ate was grown from the land. How cool. You don't have to go to a grocery store ever because your food is right in front of you. You just pick it when it's fresh. You eat in season. You're constantly getting the nutrients because you're picking the fruits and vegetables when they're peak in terms of their ripeness. So it shaped in terms of not only how I eat, what I eat, but also, just the fact that medicine in terms of conventional medicine is essentially a newer form of medicine out there, and that we have the wisdom of, the earth that's taught us for so long about herbs and nutrition, and why not be able to integrate all of the above when it comes to practice?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, I think you're right when people don't understand the differences of what doctors do, the different practices, the different types, traditional versus others. And so I think it's interesting to go into that a little bit just to understand it. Where are you seeing a shift in this? I've seen a shift internally from a lot of different what I would call traditional, but like, how do you see that in your practice?
I would just say awareness. So people are getting frustrated in not getting not getting the answers, that they're looking for. They are feeling frustrated. Their doctor's not hearing them. They're not doing advanced testing. They are getting prescriptions kind of just being given to them for any type of symptom. And they want to know why. They want to understand their bodies more. And so people are seeking more integrative care because they just want knowledge. We live in such a knowledge-driven society these days too, that people, if they're not getting their answers from their doctor, they're going straight to ChatGPT and AI. And sometimes I've actually had patients come to me being like, I had these lab tests done and my doctor never called me to review them with me. So I plugged into ChatGPT. It actually is something really serious. Now I don't know what to do. And then they're knocking on my door being like, is this serious? How do I move forward? And they've never really had providers sit down and explain their labs to them too. And so people want to know, what is their comprehensive metabolic panel telling them? What should an optimal cholesterol be? Where should my blood sugar be? So people are really just starting to get more and more aware and wanting to optimize their health.
I remember when we first met, obviously and we're going to get to, I think, hormone health and females, specifically around perimenopause and menopause. But I remember also you did a lot with gut health when we first met. And so I'd like to just know what really inspired you to go into that direction. I would say you really doubled and tripled down on that quite a bit. And early on, when I know Sunny and Nicola were like, "Hey, you got to take a look at who Dr. Dang is," and I even learned certain things about the gut that I didn't know from a lot of your literature and a lot of your postings. And so, what got you kind of into that realm?
So, as most medical professionals say, they get into their profession because they've had to become experts on it. So it was really through my own journey. And what was fascinating about my journey was early on. So I was about 13 years old that I started experiencing some pretty significant gastrointestinal, symptoms. I was in pain 24/7 every single day. Went to multiple doctors. No one was testing. I was constantly getting dismissed. Oh, you're going to grow out of it. And finally, I had to read medical textbooks and take the knowledge that I learned from these medical textbooks to doctors and tell them, hey, I think we need to do X, Y, and Z testing. And finally, I found one doctor that actually listened to what I had to say and was like, you know what? We should do that testing because we haven't done it. And guess what? I was right. And I felt just throughout that journey quite dismissed. And honestly, I wasn't very trusting in the system, where here I was at that age 15, going to the doctor, telling them what to test based off of my theory and being told that I was right. And so it was through my journey and through my own education of figuring things out that I really started to find and develop a deep passion for the gut microbiome. And so I think the gut is our second brain. I think it controls so many things, from hormones to mood to sleep to weight to metabolism, that we're just starting to understand. So I personally tell all my patients, included in your annual exam is a gut microbiome test, because that can change year to year too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you have one specifically that you favor over another one? It's so funny. I have not even I have two here, not even for any reason. They're here. They're like, I need to do these tests and I haven't done them because we're testing these out. So I'm curious if you have a favorite that you do.
I saw the G.H.O.A.T. What was the other one that you have there?
That's the G.H.O.A.T. They sent us this to test out, and
a GI map. You actually have my
GI map. Yeah, GI map. So we're obviously at 100, as you know, we have a lot of specialty tests. These specialty tests can be full body MRIs to precancerous tests through our partner Grail. We have clearly test for cardiovascular disease and plaque buildup. So we have several different tests. We're always testing new ones. And so these are the ones that somebody sent me to test out, and a stool test is, takes time. You got to think through it. It's like, I've been so busy. They've been sitting here for a while, and of course we're talking about gut. So are there ones that you prefer over others, or how do you prescribe specific ones to your patients?
You actually have two of my favorite ones sitting right in front of you.
That's awesome.
So you have the best two on the market. So historically, I've used the G.I. map. And the reason I've loved the G.I. map is it uses something called qPCR technology. So it's able to actually go ahead and detect a variety of different organisms that you often can't see through just conventional testing. There are limitations though. So in evaluation of the G.I. map, it gives specific species, but not strains of bacteria. An example is lactobacillus. Lactobacillus, there's so many subspecies, substrains of lactobacillus, but it only tells us lactobacillus. It doesn't say lactobacillus reuteri, lactobacillus rhamnosus. So that's where G.O.A.T comes in. G.O.A.T does metagenomic sequencing, so it'll look at all of the individual strains and tell you more specifically what foods are going to be beneficial. It's not going to give recommendations. It definitely need a seasoned provider to give that, but the AI functionality of G.O.A.T is top notch. So if you just kind of want to be not overwhelmed with your gut microbiome testing, the G.I. map is great because it's very streamlined. But if you're someone that wants the data and wants a really cool interface and the nutrition supportive platform around it, definitely go for G.O.A.T.
Cool. That's interesting. So I'll definitely be doing these. Now I'm more motivated and inspired to do these.
I love that.
It is work. And I think that's interesting in longevity. Early on, I built kind of this little biohacking lab, and I was like, I'm going to test out all these different things, from red light to sauna to cold plunge to hyperbaric. And my wife and I did this because we're like, let's test out and see what works and what we see return on and value, and let's measure it. And it's crazy because all of this stuff takes time and effort.
Mm-hmm.
And even when you do it, whether that's an intervention like a red light therapy or a sauna or some sort of specific test, right, that goes for your gut, how you now interpret it, right, is a whole nother thing that to go through. So like, how do you meet with your patients on the results? How do they interpret them? Because I've gotten a lot of these results back from other tests, and it's like, you've got to be really intelligent to understand it, or you need ChatGPT to explain it. And we do it very different at 100, but I'm curious how you meet and how you explain this to the people that you serve.
So what I like to do is I like to simplify everything, and I like to give a lot of analogies. So I like to ask the patient, how do you like to learn things? Do you want me to be scientific with you, or do you want me to give it to you in layman's terms? 85% of the time they want it in layman's terms, but every now and then I have, a well-educated or medical professional that's like, give me the science. And so essentially when it comes to the gut microbiome, I always talk, this is an analogy that I make probably every single day. Let's say your gut is inflamed, and I tell people your gut is like a pot of boiling water. Something is triggering the inflammation, so something's keeping the gas stove revved up all the way. You can try to throw as much water onto the fire, meaning you can try to give your body supplements to quench that inflammation, but unless you turn the gas stove off, the inflammation is never going to go away. And you're never going to be able to fully quench it too. So meaning you can throw all the supplements in the world, but if you're not figuring out the root cause of that inflammation, you're going to be in trouble. And so I like to break things, piecemeal to them and tell them, people ask me too, okay, why do I have certain gut microbiome imbalances? We might not be able to pinpoint exactly why this is occurring, but we can form hypotheses based off of, things that I've heard in their health history. And so I think just same thing, educating them, making it feel really tangible and realistic makes them actually want to be much more compliant to moving forward.
Got it. Yeah. So let's switch gears here a little bit, because I want to get a little bit of understanding for myself, but also for a lot of folks about just hormones in general, specifically for the female and to women. And it's been interesting because, when you look at 100, the majority of our private cohorts are female, 68% driven. The majority of our wait list is women. I think these are my words, so you tell me where I'm wrong, is I feel like women are more receptive to going into the doctor for more regular checkups, I would say, than males. And they're more, I would argue, even into health than males in most parts. And so when we started to think about how we deliver back results to patients, but also in a way for them to understand. We had a really big in the beginning separation. And we had a separation because we were talking to everybody the same, and we knew that was not the right way to do it. And we have now a complete new section, which is where I've really spent, the last, call it 60 plus days on specifically around women and female hormone health and perimenopause and premenopause. And we're using certain graphics that show it where you are in certain stages and what that does and symptoms of perimenopause, because folks like my wife didn't even understand it. She's like, I've heard the name, but like, I don't know what it is. Like, is it, I skip a period for 1 month? Is it, 6 months? It's off and on. And so I'd like to just really start with, how do you educate people about this? It's so funny because there's no, this is the time it's happening. There's usually, from what I've seen, symptoms that start to come that a lot of folks don't even understand they're starting to enter into that phase. And I also have seen, maybe just for my wife, there's maybe denial of I'm entering into this phase, and so, or not wanting to, which I understand. And so I'll first say I'm no expert in this area, but I have learned so much. I've gotten a lot of empathy. I feel like this is like my front row seat to working around when this does come fruition with my wife, to what to expect. And she's getting educated. She's learning so much. She's like, wow, this is so fascinating. And I would have never known. I'm thinking right now, there's so many males out there that have no clue about, like, even what, I bet you they've never even heard perimenopause or knows what it is, because it was really hard for both my wife and I to even understand it. So I'd like to just unpack how people should think about this. This is somebody listening, and you're 33. We've seen folks enter into perimenopause at 33 and have symptoms. So like, and then some people who don't enter until later, until their early 40s. And so it's very confusing. I'd like to hear from you how you think about it, how you educate folks on it, and what are still the unknowns,
Women's hormones are so unique. So first of all, we have different phases in life that we go through. So we have our puberty, that's common. Women go through that in their teens. And then an area of life that we don't talk about enough that we should is actually postpartum. And how our hormones change postpartum. And then we tend to have a little bit of a sweet spot between postpartum through perimenopause for some. Some pretty much go straight from postpartum into perimenopause. Their hormones never fully bounce back again. And then there's perimenopause, which can be 10, we're now seeing 15 years. And then menopause is something that we're starting to understand. The reason I think menopause is starting to get more awareness around it is, historically, the female life expectancy was maybe 50, 60s in the 19th century. Starting in the 20th century, it's started to expand to 70s, 80s. Now we're living to 90s, 100s, and beyond. So women are spending at least a third of their lives in perimenopause, menopause, and beyond. So in terms of bringing awareness around it, I think, first of all, it's so important to understand, where is a woman at in their journey? Are they in puberty? Are they in reproductive years? Are they postpartum? Are they starting to enter perimenopause and menopause? And also understanding what the hormones are doing in each phase of the cycle. So generally in a 28-day period, we have such a natural fluctuation, but there's so many hormonal imbalances that are also occurring too, that could be shifting things, that could be shortening the cycle, lengthening the cycle. So I think what's most important is for individuals just to have more normalized conversations around just menstrual cycles, different phases, and different phases of life hormonally too.
Wow. Yeah. It's so funny. It's like, I'm not even joking. I feel like I'm a broken record. Every night I go home, this is what we talk about. And my wife's interested, which is great. And I'm learning so much of what, she's postpartum right now. We had a daughter 10 months ago, 9 months ago. She's going to kill me for not knowing. 10 months ago. And so she's even talking about this phase of postpartum and what she's going through and the changes she's seen, both physically and mentally. So it's really hard to unpack. How do you, I guess here's a question I have, is like, how do you determine what stage somebody's in? Is there you are in this stage, or you're entering into this stage? How should women feel about that? I'm thinking for my wife, she's trying to think about this. Am I in perimenopause? Am I not? Here are some symptoms, but here are some not. Like, how does one know?
So you can try to test, and so there's certain indications in labs that can point us to the direction of perimenopause, but really you look at your FSH and your LH in lab testing, and that will actually confirm menopause. But for those in perimenopause, if you're still producing and cycling hormones, it's not going to give us that much utility. I really focus on the symptoms. And the main symptoms that women start to notice when they're starting to enter perimenopause is their cycle changing. So historically they had, that 20-day to 30-day cycle. And now suddenly, 1 month it's 22, the next month it's 44, maybe it's at 30, then it's kind of becoming a little bit more erratic. Other symptoms that I also see very commonly is suddenly women are getting very anxious. They're waking up in the middle of the night between 2 to 4 a.m. and they suddenly can't go back to sleep. They're gaining weight, and they're gaining weight specifically around their abdomen. And there are these women that have eaten the exact same way for the past 30 years, exercised the same way, and suddenly they just blew up 10 pounds. And so that's usually, it's mostly based off of symptoms that I start to question and further investigate. Then is it perimenopause? Is it metabolism? What's happening here? Because one symptom that's earlier in terms of perimenopause is actually not only lower estrogen, but lower testosterone. So libido is changing. They're not able to gain as much, muscle mass and strength, and they're starting to become more fatigued with more brain fog.
Wow. And so I'm curious, are there any lifestyle changes or interventions that you think of that you recommend to women who are starting to notice these kind of perimenopause symptoms?
So first, testing. I always say test, don't guess. So understand what's happening. Is it, the decline in estrogen? Is it a decline in progesterone? So I'll kind of break down first, these hormones first of all. So a drop in estrogen will lead to just, more weight, same thing around the abdomen. Skin elasticity changes. A drop in progesterone leads to more irritability, more anxiety, more sleep-related concerns. And then testosterone, a drop in testosterone leads to more brain fog, more fatigue, just, same thing, weight gain too. And so first by testing it, but there are plenty of other things that you can do to actually optimize your hormones too. There's two things that I love to recommend. So cycle syncing is number one. So by cycle syncing, you're actually eating certain foods and exercising in certain ways to optimize your hormones for different phases of your cycle. And seed cycling. So you eat certain seeds, so such as sesame seeds, sunflower seeds, pumpkin, and flax seeds at different points of your menstrual cycle too, to optimize your estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone.
Yeah, got it. I'm curious, as a non-female, as a male, as a man, how can I help normalize this conversation and education kind of in the space? I don't think I'm qualified, but I'm so curious to learn. And I think it's just and maybe it's because I'm a male and I don't see it. It feels like it's such an untalked about discussion. And I even say this from my wife and her girlfriends that we got together, like they don't talk about it, and maybe it's where they're at in their age, but it feels like it's, and maybe I'm clueless to this. It's not talked about as much as I would have thought,
Yeah, I think just first of all, normalizing and having these conversations, because a lot of men stray from it. And I know there's a lot of apps nowadays that can pinpoint exactly what phase of the menstrual cycle your wife or your partner is into. And so understanding where they're at can also be beneficial. So for example, you see your wife, she's in her luteal phase. She's about to start menstruating. This is a great time to just bring her some chocolate,
She's gonna love this, by the way. She's gonna love this.
Put a blanket on her, get her a heating pad. Or let's say, you work with women in the workplace. I think having open and honest discussions of, hey, just wanted to check in. How are you? Is it something that you're going through? Let us know if you need more support around it, or if someone's, not sleeping well, they're going through perimenopause, their progesterone's dropping, their brain fog's increasing, cutting them a little bit of slack and giving them some understanding that, I'm here for you in a way to support you. I also tell all the men that want to support their women, I think one of the best things that you guys can do to support not only them, but your relationship is invest in an 8-slate mattress topper. The reason I say that is because when women are going through perimenopause and menopause, they're hot flashes. They wake up in the middle of the night in a fit of, fury in terms of not only their body, but their symptoms. And I'm telling you that 8 sleep will save the day.
I love it. It's not a sponsored ad at all, but
No,
we have the 8 sleep and we love it as well. And it's so funny. We promote it to everyone. We don't even get paid for it just because
it's great.
it's a great product. It's a great product. Cool. Well, I guess ending at this, what if you're speaking to women right now, call it age 35 to 55, thinking about this, what's the message to them? What should they be thinking about? How should they be learning more about this subject?
I think just first of all, having them recognize that sometimes it might feel out of their control. And the symptoms of perimenopause makes them feel out of their own body. The weight gain, the anxiety, the trouble sleeping, it can really impact a person's mental health too. So if they're starting to feel off, don't ever let anyone gaslight you into thinking that it's normal when you know your body better than anybody else. Two, work with providers, work with practitioners, do advanced lab testing to really understand what's happening with your body. And so therefore how to support it in a much more optimized fashion. Because I've had some women live with it for 10, 15 years when you don't have to. You can get the support that you need. And so just normalizing that, normalizing testing, normalizing support, and normalizing conversation are the best things that people can do.
Yeah. Well, I'm super grateful for your time. I'm really excited to continue the discussions, which
Likewise.
is funny. I would have never thought a year ago these would be the talks I would be having. My wife and I laugh all the time. It's like such a different shift. And it's a great shift. It's super fascinating. I love this space, and I just love learning specifically about humans. So thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it, and looking forward to connecting soon.
Thank you for having me. This was great. Anytime.
Awesome.